Hello, my friends. I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions, and I thank you for your time today. I want to talk to you about the advantages of establishing a 501c3 nonprofit foundation. Again, I want to talk to you today about the advantages of establishing a 501c3 nonprofit foundation and who will benefit from doing so. I have a free resource for you in the description that gives way more details about this topic than I'm sharing in the video. So just go to my description and click on the free resource there so that you can learn more about the advantages of establishing a nonprofit foundation. The reason that I bring this up is because of what's going on right now in the nonprofit sector around the reduction in funding that the federal government is providing for nonprofit organizations. Needless to say, we are living in a chaotic time right now, not knowing how much more or how many more cuts we're going to have to endure in the nonprofit sector from the federal government level. That's just one entity, though. But I want to talk about the advantages of starting a foundation at this time because we need money. Nonprofit organizations need money to survive. And there is an advantage for you as an individual to start a 501c3 nonprofit foundation to provide funding for the charitable organizations that are doing the work. Let me say that again. There is a need for foundations to provide money to the charitable organizations that are doing the work. Let's say, for example, your name is John Doe. Okay, John, you have disposable income. You care about your community, and it bothers you to know that charitable organizations that have been doing the work for years may have to shut their doors because they don't have the money. But you, Mr. John Doe, you have the money to help, but you don't know you don't know how to help. One way to help is to create your own foundation, 501c3, that allows you to put aside money to invest money from your personal bank account into the 501c3 foundation that you establish, and you can write off that donation to your own foundation. And then, Mr. John Doe, once you have money in your foundation, you can send out what's called requests for proposals or RFPs. Those are announcements that you will create or your team will create to announce publicly the availability of money for charitable organizations to apply. Then, once you start receiving grant proposals, because that's what they're going to send you, grant proposals that you requested through the request for proposals, then you and your team will decide which charitable organization will get the money to do the work. That's it. That's it. I set up foundations for people and I have been doing it for years. And most of the people that I have helped over the years are people like Mr. John Doe who have disposable income. Most of them have been very wealthy and they want to help, but they don't want to, but not want to. They cannot help as far as being presently available to go out and, for example, deliver water to the homeless, but they want to support organizations that do deliver water to the homeless. They want to be able to provide the financial resources necessary for them to do that work. So a foundation is primarily for people, individuals anyway, who don't have the time to do the work, but they want to provide the resources, the finances, the money for charitable organizations to do the work. So they create a foundation. They hire me to create a foundation. Then they start investing in the foundation, and they don't have to be the only investor. Of course, they could have their friends, family. They can have fundraisers to raise money for their foundations, because it's a 501c3. Whatever people donate, they can write it off too, just like the founder can write it off. And then they have an organized way of creating a request for proposal. The request for proposal will explain to the public what types of organizations they want to support. They want to support organizations that help the homeless. Okay, they'll put that in there. They want to support organizations that provide after school services for youth. They put that in there. They want to provide services to help veterans. They put that in there. But normally, a request for proposal has one core purpose, one core area in which they support. They will explain that, the description of their help that they will provide, financial help, who qualifies, the eligibility requirements. Then they will say how much is available. They will tell the public, we have $135,000 available, and we're going to make 50 awards out of that $135,000. They're being transparent about how much money they have and how many awards will be received from that money or distributed from that money. And then they tell you what the deadline is to submit your grant proposal. They even may tell you how the grant proposal should be laid out. As a foundation creator or developer, you can have the discretion to create your RFP however you choose. And if you want to have specific requirements for how a grant proposal should look when they submit it to you, you can do that. I know that there's some foundations that require grant proposals to be written in certain font styles, font sizes, line spaces, page numbering, headers and footers, all of that. And if it's not done correctly, then they are disqualified from receiving the money, primarily because they failed to follow directions. You can also have in your RFP reporting times. When do you want people to report how they have used your money? That's what a foundation is all about. And once you get that information back from the public, again, you give them a deadline to submit the grant proposals, you get the grant proposals in, then you and your team are going to sit down and you're going to compare the grant proposals submitted to the RFP to make sure that they understood what the requirements were in the RFP. And then you will decide on who the recipients of the grant funding will be based on the quality of the grant proposal. Then you will announce who received the grant funding. And some foundations host events to present the checks, the mock checks, to the recipients so that everybody can re- see who the recipients are and also to acknowledge their work. So they host special events, banquets, whatever, to let the public know this is what the foundation does. These are the people we've helped. This is how much money they've received. And this is the impact. This is what they're going to do in the community with our money. Some foundations even go as far as hosting something like a Shark Tank when people come up and they pitch their ideas to get grant money. So, as a foundation creator, you can really benefit the community without having to do the work. So, my question is this something that you would like to do? If you want to learn more about the advantages and disadvantages of foundations, I have a free resource in the description that you can download. And I do talk about the disadvantages too, because there are a few disadvantages that are in the free resource that I don't explain here in this video. But if you want to start a foundation, I would be honored to have the opportunity to work with you one on one in establishing a foundation so that you can, I guess, indirectly provide a profound impact in your community by providing the money For the charitable organizations include the people who actually do the work. You can provide the money for them to do the work in the community that's so important and needed, especially during this time in which we don't know what's going to happen to funding, because when you have the federal government eliminating like millions of dollars in funding for nonprofits, that's a trickle down negative effect. Because if a major nonprofit organization such as Planned Parenthood, for example, loses millions of dollars in funding, look at organizations that are beneath Planned Parenthood that relied upon Planned Parenthood for their clinics. Those clinics are going to have to close too. Not only Planned Parenthood, the YMCA, the National Urban League, so many organizations that are losing funding for reasons they may not understand, but the trickle down effect is major to the smaller grassroots charitable organizations. But you, Mr. John Doe, and so many others who may have that disposable income and you want to do good in the community, you can make a difference by creating your own foundation. And I will be honored to help you do that. I have information in the description about how you can reserve a consultation with me to talk about foundation ideas that you may have and the steps that I use to help you create a foundation to make a difference in your community. I've been doing this work since 2010, and my approval rating is 100%. And I can provide, as the young people say, I can provide receipts or I can provide recommendations for you to call to validate what I am saying. This is what I do. This is what I do day in and day out. I help people start and reinstate nonprofits by completing a Form 1023 application for them. And I would be honored to have the opportunity to at least talk to you about the advantages and disadvantages of starting a foundation from scratch. The free resource is there in the description. Information about how to reserve a consultation with me is also there in the description. I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. Thank you for supporting my business since 2003. I really appreciate it. Have a good day.